Batman Arkham City was a video that took so long to put together that it took me nearly 2 weeks to find the time to edit it all. This week I've decided to go for a challenge that from the outset shouldn't be too overly long or tedious by comparison. So today I aim to find out, can you beat Pokemon Fire Red with only a Charmander? Okay, so first things first, I've actually been sitting on this video for quite some time, just waiting to finish it, as I recorded the first half of it all the way back in June, just after my Shield-only Skyrim video, and only remembered about it when clearing out old footage from my hard drive. Anyway, you're probably wondering why Charmander and not the other starters? Well, if you've ever played the Gen 1 games, or in this case their Gen 3 remakes, you'll know that the starters are more like difficulty settings for the early game. For example, the first two gyms are Rock and Water, so if you choose Bulbasaur, you will absolutely breeze through the opening of the game, as he is super effective against both gym leaders. Charmander, on the other hand, is weak to both Rock and Water, meaning I'm going to have a miserable time for the opening hours, because I can't just say catch a monkey to be able to deal with Brock easily. So with the brief introduction out of the way, the rules I've set for myself are: I can only use Charmander in combat. I can however catch other Pokemon, as I will need them for HMs, specifically the ones that Charmander has no way of learning. I cannot evolve Charmander. This is a Charmander run after all, not a Charmander's evolution run, so Charmeleon and Charizard are not allowed. And finally, I'm not allowing myself to use items in battle other than held items such as berries or the Quick Claw. This isn't necessarily a rule, this is just how I like to play Pokemon. And with that, let's get started. As soon as the game starts up properly and we get control of our character, I plow through this intro section as normal until I get my Charmander. I name him Florence, for that's what I've always called my Charmanders. I'm not sure why, I just do. The first rival fight is nothing worth talking about, as you both only have access to one weak normal move and one stat lowering move. With that said, I beat him rather easily and move on. For anyone who's curious, Florence is a mild nature, meaning he has increased special attack, but lowered defense. The increased special attack is really good, as in Gen 3 all fire moves are special, so I at least hit harder with my same type moves. The lower defense, however, has me a little worried, as it means I'm not going to have a lot in the ways to survive rock or ground moves, and seeing how the first gym is Brock's rock gym, I am already starting to get nervous. I spent a few minutes knocking out Pidgeys and Bertatas to get to level 7 so I can learn Ember, and then grab the parcel in the next town and bring it straight back to Professor Oak. My plan is now that I have Ember, I can easily go train on the bug Pokemon, the Viridian Forest, as I feel I'm going to need a power level to even be able to take a hit from Brock's Pokemon. Before heading to the forest though, I decided to do the optional rival battle that's just to the left of Viridian City, as it's good early game experience. I am more than able to easily two-shot his Pidgey with Ember due to it not having a very high special defense and me being a couple of levels higher at this point. When he sends out his Squirtle, out of morbid curiosity I try using Ember on him just to see if my high special attack will counter the type disadvantage, but it doesn't, and it does very little damage, so I resort to just using Scratch instead. Lucky for us though, it seems he doesn't have any water moves yet, as he just keeps tackling, and we are able to just scrape by with enough health to win the fight and get enough experience to bump us up to level 12. Now, as I mentioned before, I spend a little time grinding the Viridian Forest until I'm level 15, and in the process learn Metal Claw, which is a steel move, meaning that at the very least I now have a move that will be super effective against rock Pokemon. So, feeling more confident in my abilities, I decide to go and fight the trainer in Brock's gym to try and gauge how I might stack up to Brock. When fighting the trainer's Geodude, I use both Ember and Metal Claw to see which is better, and due to me having high special and somewhat low physical attack stats, they end up doing about the same. Ember does work a lot better on the Sandshrew however, and with that we are now level 16, which means Florence will now rather desperately try to evolve every time he levels up from here until the end of the game, but sadly it's no avail, as we will not let him. Regardless, I try throwing myself at Brock just to see what will happen. The Geodude goes pretty well, as I'm able to take off half of his health with a single Metal Claw, and all he does in return is spam defense curls. So an Ember followed by another Metal Claw is more than enough to take him out. Next up is Brock's Onix, and straight to the point, we simply are not strong enough to beat him yet. Our Metal Claw, while super effective, is just not enough to break through Onix's defense, whereas his Rock Tomb is strong enough to two-shot us, as well as slow us down, putting us at even more of a disadvantage. Well, after that defeat, I go back and grind just a little bit more to get up to level 17, as I don't want to wildly overlevel and make things way too easy. Once again, I get past his Geodude with no issues and come face to face with Onix. I get closer this time, but it's mainly due to him using Tackle and Bind rather than two back-to-back Rock Tombs, but once again, he knocks us out. Okay, so I go and grind up to level 18, and then I go back and attempt Brock for a third time. I get so close because he missed a Rock Tomb, and I get him down to what must have literally been 1 HP, but then he hits us once again with the Rock Tomb and takes us out. But that's okay, because now I know he's in the damage range for me to beat him, so it's just a matter of getting lucky enough for him to either miss his Rock Tombs or for him to use Tackle or Bind one too many times. And wouldn't you know it, on my very next attempt he misses 2 back-to-back Rock Tombs while I land 2 Metal Claws, bringing him to a third of his overall health. But then when I go to finish him off with the last Metal Claw, I miss my attack, and then once again he misses his 3rd Rock Tomb in a row, and then I land my 3rd Metal Claw, taking him out. That was an incredibly stressful rollercoaster of emotions, but I'm just glad that he's out of the way and we can finally move on. Pressing onward, the trainers before Mount Moon and the encounters in Mount Moon itself are so underleveled compared to us now that I completely breezed past all of it in a matter of minutes. I'm not going to complain about some easy experience though. On the other side of Mount Moon, I decided to replace Scratch with Mega Punch for the time being, as it's a much stronger normal move and I wasn't using Scratch much at the moment anyway. Time for the next rival fight just before Nugget Bridge, and he starts by sending out his newly evolved Pidgeotto. Thankfully, all it does is try to lower my accuracy, so I'm able to knock it out with 2 Embers and keep all of my health. Next, he ends up going straight to Squirtle, which would be troublesome, but this is why I had Florence learn Mega Punch. It does pretty decent damage and nearly brings him down to half health. He ends up using Withdraw however, so rather than going for another Mega Punch, I start lowering his accuracy in hopes it will cause him to miss enough of his water guns for us to live. It doesn't quite go to plan, as he's able to hit us with 2 water guns, bringing us down to 20 HP, but I am lucky enough to get a critical Metal Claw to put him into the red, and then, thanks to our speed advantage, I can play it safe and use Ember for the higher accuracy to make sure we get the knockout. After Squirtle goes down, he sends out Abra, who has really low defense and can't actually fight back, so we just take him down to single Metal Claw. Lastly is Rattata, who nearly beats us due to the fact I missed my first Ember and he hit us with a Tackle, followed by a Quick Attack, which took me all the way down to 4 hit points. Thankfully though, the second Ember did hit and it was a 1-hit KO, meaning I was somehow lucky enough to get past this on my first attempt. Now, due to being level 25 already, we are at least 10 levels higher than most of the Pokemon here, and as such we give them all an early cremation and a one-way ticket to the Pokemon Tower. I take out all the trainers on the way to Bill for some easy leveling, and then I make my way back to see how Florence stacks up to the trainers inside of the water gym. It surprisingly goes much better than I could have hoped, as I managed to beat both trainers without taking any damage by using a combination of Embers and Mega Punches. Unfortunately though, I don't manage to steamroll through Misty quite as easily. Much like Brock, I'm able to easily deal with her first Pokemon, but whenever her Starmie comes out, it quickly takes out 3/4 of my health with a single Water Pulse, and then easily finishes me off with a second one. I am faster than it though, so I imagine with just a few more levels I will be able to take it out with 2 Mega Punches. I decide to get a few levels by fighting some of the trainers on the way to Vermilion, as they give out good experience even though they are quite a few levels below me at this point. I return to confront Misty at level 32, and now, rather than having to try and rely on the questionable accuracy of Mega Punch, I can use my increased special attack to take Staryu out with a single Flamethrower. And as for Starmie, I use Flamethrower as well, which brings it down to just below half, and while she does do about the same damage to me in return with Water Pulse, I was smart enough to give Florence a Citrus Berry, meaning should something happen, he would have more than enough hit points to survive a second attack. And with that, I landed the second Flamethrower and secured the Cascade badge from Misty, giving us the ability to move on. Thankfully, this should be the last major hurdle for a while, as I can't imagine the next few gyms posing too much of a real threat. Now we can board the SS Anne, and even though I have no real need for more levels right now, I decide to fight everyone aboard the boat anyway, as once you get the cut HM from the captain, the boat leaves, meaning this is my only chance to fight these trainers. Once we effortlessly defeat all the trainers, we have to have another rival fight before meeting the captain. Other than the first rival battle at the very beginning of the game, this is by far the easiest, as we are 15 levels higher than his strongest Pokemon. Meaning, we get through this whole battle without him even being able to land a single hit on us. Up the stairs we get the HM for Cut, and because I don't want Florence to be stuck with one of the worst moves in the game for the foreseeable future, I go out and catch a Pidgey to teach Cut to. I name him Flying Cut, as that's what his entire existence will be from here on out. Or at least it would have been, but it turns out Pidgeys can't learn Cut. It's a little annoying, but I hang on to him anyway, as he will still be useful for fast travel once I get Fly later on. Regardless, I still need something that has the mentality to be a lumberjack, so I catch a nearby Oddish and name him Actual Cut. And sure enough, he can indeed actually learn Cut. Once inside the electric gym, I sweep past the trainers no problem. It's this stupid garbage bin puzzle that ends up taking me nearly 5 straight minutes to get right that is the real time sink here. Once I finally find the 2 switches and get to actually fight Surge, it's rather anticlimactic as I quickly one-shot sweep his entire team with Flamethrower, making for the easiest badge we have gotten yet by far. Realising that I was fairly overleveled for this point of the game, I decided to make my way straight for Rock Tunnel, which was something I wasn't particularly excited for, because if it wasn't obvious by the name, it is home to a lot of rock Pokemon that could easily destroy me even despite the current level gap. Even though I said I wasn't going to grind, due to the fact I had to fight some trainers on the way to Rock Tunnel anyway, I was already level 40 by the time I entered, which may seem like overkill, but in all honesty, it was very much needed. Since I'm not catching Pokemon, bar the ones I need for HMs, I can't even go and learn Flash to make navigating the tunnel any easier. Luckily, I did stock up on repels before entering, so I wouldn't have to deal with endless random encounters. Even so though, all the hikers and trainers that I unwillingly walked in front of still made this experience a hellish one. By the time I got to the last trainer, I had ran out of healing items and had only 10 overall power points left with no items to replenish them. Thankfully, I was able to get through on my first attempt, but had I bumped into even one more hiker, I would have been done for and forced to try and find my way through Rock Tunnel all over again, which, needless to say, would not have been a very fun time. Arriving in Lavender Town, I make a beeline straight for the Poké Center, and from there, I guess I'm going left to Celadon. I would do the first half of the Pokemon Tower now, but there really is no point since I don't have the Silph Scope yet, which, of course, isn't Celadon. When I get the cell done, our main focus is for the rocket hideout, for the Southco of course. Now, you're probably wondering, well, what about Erica's grass gym? There is your answer. Since we still have a pretty substantial level lead on all of the Team Rocket grunts, I won't waste your time by going for the rocket hideout in great detail. Just know that once we got face to face with Giovanni, Florence was now sitting at 47, putting him at just over a 20 level advantage. So in other words, he does not even stand a chance in the slightest. Now with the Southscope in hand, it was back to the Pokémon Tower. Except I made a quick detour first when I somehow only now noticed that I didn't have the bike or the voucher for it for that matter. So I made my way back to Vermilion to grab the voucher, and then from there I went straight back to Cerulean and finally got my hands on it. The bike is technically optional, but I want it as I like the idea of being able to grind on the bikers with a Verse Seeker on Cycling Road should I hit a point where I need to grind for levels. Now, even though I said I was heading back to the Pokémon Tower, I for some reason decided to go to Saffron and try my hand at the fighting dojo. Not sure why, as it is optional and you don't need to do it to complete the game. The trainers inside are nothing too difficult, although they do have Pokemon in their 30s now, meaning the level gap is slowly but surely starting to close between me and the other in-game trainers. All that being said, I forget to heal up before taking on the dojo's leader, and I get taken out by his Hitmonlee's high jump kick whenever I'm unable to take him out with a single flamethrower. Well, seeing how that was the first death since Misty, it kind of put me back in my place, and so I decided to just head back to Lavender Town and do the Pokemon Tower. The rival fight in the tower goes by without any real problems. This is, once again, mainly due to the fact that this Wartortle refuses to use a water move on its first turn and instead always sets up a withdrawal, which lets me take it out in 2 slashes. As for the rest of his team, the only one that manages to actually hit me is his Growlithe with an Ember, but seeing how we are a fire type, it only does 6 damage, so it is really not a threat to us. At the top of the tower, we get past the Marowak without taking any damage, thanks to our flamethrower taking it to a sliver and then getting lucky enough for it to cause a burn, taking it out before it even gets a chance to do any damage. Afterwards, I incinerate all the rocket grunts and in the process get to level 50 before saving Mr. Fuji and in turn getting the Pokeflute to let us access more of the map. After that victory, I feel a lot more confident to head back to the dojo in Saffron and get my sweet revenge on the Hitmonlee that took us out before. And to top it off, I take the Hitmonlee as my prize after winning the match and then out of spite immediately released it into the wild. Anyway, moving on with the plot, before we can challenge the gym leader, we need to go through Southco and confront Giovanni again. As anyone who's played these games knows, Southco is an absolutely horrible dungeon. It has so many floors, so many teleporters, and you gotta find the key card before you can even begin to start making progress. I'm not sure how long I wandered around here for, but it was definitely longer than I would have liked. Eventually I did find the key card and the correct teleporter that will put you on the right path, but before we can even get to Giovanni, we have to do another rival fight. By this point, most of his team are evolved, meaning that even if they are lower level than us, they will probably have stats that are quite comparable to ours. First is his Pidgeot as always. For the first time it doesn't go down in one flamethrower and it's able to get a wing attack in, taking off a small chunk of our health before we can finish it off with a slash. Next up was Blastoise, and I try slash in hopes that it will crit or just do some decent damage. Sadly though, it barely hurts him and then he follows up with a water gun that takes us all the way down to almost a quarter of our overall health. Seeing how I have essentially signed my death warrant with this fight, I just accept my fate and use Dragon Rage on him just to see how well it stacks up. And it's honestly not too bad, but he clearly has more than 80 hit points, meaning that he would knock me out in any future attempts. There's no way around it for now, I cannot win this fight, so for the time being I leave Saffron and begin making my way towards Fuchsia City to try my luck at Koga's Poison Gym, simply because it's the only other option I have other than just grinding until I can beat my rival. First attempt at Koga and I can easily one-shot his first Koffing, so no issues there. When his Muck comes out however, I hit it with a slash and it barely puts a dent in his health, and then he raises evasion with Minimize, which on its own is usually something that you can deal with, if a little annoying, but I get unlucky and get poisoned by Sludge in the next turn, meaning he is easily able to stall me out until I get knocked out by the poison. I immediately come back and try again as I'm confident I can win with just a bit of luck. And wouldn't you know, on the very next attempt, when I get to his Muck, I'm able to take him out with 2 flamethrowers and avoid getting poisoned at the same time. Next up is his second Koffing, which goes down the same as his first, and finally his level 43 Weezing. Once again, I am lucky enough to not get poisoned and my flamethrowers bring it down to a sliver of health, and after he's done using all of his hyper potions, I'm able to land 2 back-to-back flamethrowers and get the badge as well as a few more levels for good measure. After beating Koga, and while I'm still in Fuchsia, I decide to go to the Safari Zone so I can grab the HM for Surf, as well as the Warden's Gold Teeth, so that he will give me the HM for Strength now as well. Since no one I have can learn Strength, I decided to just teach it to Florence, as it isn't the worst move ever, and it will certainly be better than Dragon Rage at this point in the game. Now, since I am grabbing the HMs at the moment, I decide to head up Cycling Road so I can get the final HM Fly, which, with Surf, gives me an idea of what to do next. Rather than head back to Saffron, I instead head south from Fuchsia and fish up a Krabby and name him Boat. If the name didn't make it clear, he is going to be our surf slave for this run. I then use Fly to go all the way back to Pallet Town, and from there I just use Boat to go south until we reach Cinnabar, as unlike later games, there's nothing stopping us doing the gyms out of what is the intended order. So once at Cinnabar, I quickly make my way through the Pokemon Mansion thanks to the fact I still have some leftover repels from earlier, and grab the key that lets us access Blaine's Fire Gym. I do take the time to fight all the trainers in the gym because we resist any fire moves that they can throw at us, and as such they make for some easy experience. When we get to Blaine, I am able to get through most of his team with no real issues, thanks to strength being neutral on fire types and my high special attack, meaning Flamethrower also still does a good bit of damage. When we get to his last Pokemon, Arcanine, I thought we were about to have an easy victory whenever Flamethrower crit, but just my luck, it left him with what must have been literally either 1 or 2 hit points, and from there he ended up taking us out with a Fire Blast. On my next attempt, I did teach Florence how to use Dig, since it would be super effective against Blaine's Pokemon, but sadly Florence is lacking in his physical attack so much that it ended up going worse than the last attempt and I lose again. Okay, so since my fire moves were doing a decent amount of damage, I decided to fly back to Celadon and buy the charcoal from the game corner, as it will boost the power of my fire moves, which I'm hoping may be enough. It was not. Alright, so with no other ideas, I decided I would take a leaf out of Koga's book and taught Florence how to use Double Team, in hopes that I could dodge Blaine's Fire Blast, as he just seems to spam that one move and it already has a pretty low accuracy. In what seems like horrendous luck, it takes 4 stacks of Double Teams before I am even able to dodge just one single Fire Blast from his starting Growlithe. Well, after I manage to get 6 Double Teams off, I'm able to make my way through his team without getting hit again. But even still, I was only 1 Fire Blast away from losing the fight that entire time. And while it did work in this fight, I can't see it being all too useful in battles where the opponent actually has super effective moves against me, as I just don't have the defenses to tank hits while I set up double teams like other Pokemon do. Well, with all the new levels I've gained from the last 2 gyms, I decided it's finally time to head back to Southco and try the battle with my rival again. Well, the extra levels clearly helped a lot, as not only can I take down his Pidgeot in 1 Flamethrower, I'm also able to live after taking 2 Water Guns unlike before, meaning I can just about manage to do enough damage with 2 Flamethrowers and a Strength, letting me knock out what is easily the scariest member of his team, and from there I am more than able to take out his remaining team and can now stop worrying about this fight. I'm not done with the Southco Tower just yet though, as I still need to take out Giovanni. Before I do that however, I teach Florence the Fire Blast TM I got from Blaine so that he has a little extra firepower, pun intended. When the battle starts off, we immediately take out Nidorino with a Flamethrower and in the process level up to 61. Next up is Rhyhorn and it goes the exact same as Nidorino. After Rhyhorn he sends out Kangaskhan, and to be safe and to make sure we get the 1-hit KO I use Fire Blast, and sure enough, 1 is enough. Finally is Nidoqueen, who surprisingly to me, manages to tank a Fire Blast and just hang on with a small amount of health. Luckily she doesn't capitalise on it and only uses Tail Whip. We do miss our second Fire Blast due to the low accuracy, but her double kick only does 31 damage, so we easily finish her off in the next turn with Flamethrower, winning the match and finally letting us be done with Southco, as well as being able to take on Sabrina in her gym. Not wanting to beat around the bush here, at this point we are much stronger than anything Sabrina can throw at us, and as you can see from this footage, we decimate her entire team in less than 5 minutes. Well, with that out of the way, all that's left is the 8th gym back in Viridian, so that's where we're heading next. Before taking on the final gym, I head to the move deleter so that Florence can get rid of Strength, and in its place for the time learn Brick Break, as it's a pretty solid move for dealing with rock Pokemon, as well as a good counter should a trainer start putting up light screens. The first few attempts against Giovanni in the 8th gym all go about the same. I spend time getting 6 double teams on Rhyhorn and then finish him with 2 Brick Breaks, but afterwards things always go downhill. Even with 6 double teams, I always end up losing to Earthquake, as it is a 100 power and 100 accuracy move that is super effective, meaning more often than not it will hit me regardless of my evasion level. What you're seeing now is my best attempt using this strat, and I only managed to get to his Nidoking before it knocks me out. After a few more attempts with double team that just don't work, I decide to go on the full offensive, and surprisingly, it works much better, as I'm able to take out Rhyhorn with a Fire Blast, followed by Dugtrio, who goes down to a single Flamethrower, and then Nidoqueen, who also goes down to a single Fire Blast. Shockingly, even his Nidoking and his last Pokemon, his level 50 Rhyhorn, aren't able to survive a Fire Blast, and I'm able to get the final badge I need and make my way to the last section of the game. Before we can make our way to Victory Road however, we have one last rival battle, and now all his Pokemon are close to level 50. Well, since his Pidgeot is out first, I take it down to red health with Flamethrower and then start building double teams, because let's not kid ourselves here, Blastoise will very easily one-shot me, and I don't think I have the power to take him out before he gets a chance to attack. After we deal with Pidgeot, he sends out Rhyhorn, and seeing how we just dealt with Giovanni's Rhyhorn, who was a higher level mind you, we are able to take him out, but he manages to land a takedown on us, bringing us into red health. I would be more worried if I didn't already believe that his team could easily one-shot me regardless of us being in red or not. Next is Blastoise, and thankfully our strategy pays off and we manage to avoid all of his attacks, allowing us to whittle him down with Fire Blast until we can finish him off with a Flamethrower. His last 3 Pokemon, Growlithe, Execute and Alakazam, aren't nearly fast enough to attack first, and as such we easily finish them off and just about manage to scrape by. The only thing of worth in Victory Road is that we get the TM for Dragon Claw, which will be essential if we want any hope of beating Lance later. Once we make it to the Elite Four, I am not going to sugarcoat it, we don't stand a chance of beating Lorelei at our current level. While we may be good against Ice-type Pokemon, almost all of her team is also part water, and no high damaging water moves. There is no way around it, we need to be stronger, a lot stronger. So I head back on down to Victory Road and just grind at the entrance to the Pokemon League. I grinded here until I went from level 68 to 74, and from there I gave Florence 6 rare candies that I've been saving up for this very moment to bump him all the way up to level 80. His speed and special attack are pretty great, but his defenses are lacking and that scares me. But I was so fed up with grinding that I at least wanted to try battling Lorelei again. I try again and I fare quite a bit better, and I'm able to take out 3 of her 5 Pokemon before I get knocked out by her Slowbro. While aggravating, I notice that her Cloyster just spams moves like Protect and Spikes, which aren't annoying since we won't be switching in Pokemon, which gives me an idea. On my next attempt, once I get the Cloyster, since I know it isn't going to attack me, I start stacking up double teams now so that I have a chance of avoiding Surfs from her Lapras and Slowbro later. And wouldn't you know, this plan actually worked flawlessly, and I was able to take out her Lapras with relative ease. Her Slowbro was definitely the scariest part of her team, as he is Water Psychic, meaning all of my attacks were not very effective. I was able to whittle him down eventually with Flamethrowers and Fire Blasts, and all that was left was her Jinx, which was a complete joke as she is a complete Ice type, meaning 2 Brick Breaks were more than enough to get past her. And now I could finally move on to the fighting trainer Bruno. Bruno's battle is like night and day when compared to Lorelei, as he has nothing that can easily knock me out. A few Brick Breaks are more than enough for both of his Onyxes, and as for his 3 fighting type Pokemon, they don't seem to have very high special defense and go down to my fire moves rather easily. Next is Ghost Trainer Agatha, and much like Bruno's fighting types, her Pokemon don't have a high enough special defense stat to survive getting one-hit KO by my fire moves, making for a surprisingly easy victory. I honestly thought she'd be a lot tougher. Last up was Dragon Trainer Lance, and much like Lorelei, he is just a wall that we cannot get past right now. His Gyarados is just far too strong for us right now and can take us out far too easily, and on the few attempts where I somehow get lucky enough to take it down, I would be almost instantly knocked out by his Aerodactyl using Ancient Power. I threw myself at this fight about 10 times before giving up and making a decision to go back and grind some more before coming back, which would mean I would have to fight my way back through the other 3 members again, but so be it if that's what it's going to take. I go back to where I grinded earlier and spend what must have been a few hours grinding until I hit a point where I just couldn't grind anymore. I stopped once I finally hit level 95 as I was getting so incredibly bored, and in the end I thought 5 more levels probably wouldn't make much of a difference anyway. Also, not really relevant, but I decided to go knock out Zapdos for some reason. Not sure why I did that, but here you are I suppose. When fighting the Elite Four, I just do exactly as I did before, only now I am stronger, and therefore I steamroll through them with no issue until I get back to Lance. I try using the double team strat on Gyarados, but even still he gets me down to 58 hit points before I can knock him out, which doesn't fill me with much confidence. That said, however, for the first time I'm able to one-shot and get past his Aerodactyl with a single Fire Blast. Granted, I am then almost immediately defeated by his Dragonite when he lands an Outrage on me, but that's okay because it shows me that I can beat him. The very next try I abandon the double team plan and just go full out attack much like I did on Giovanni. I get lucky with his Gyarados only using Dragon Rage instead of Hyper Beam, letting me take it out with a Fire Blast followed by a Dragon Claw. Next up is Aerodactyl, who doesn't go down to 1 Fire Blast this time and manages to land a relatively weak Hyper Beam on us, all things considered, before we finish him off with a Flamethrower. Now was his Dragonite. And what might be the luckiest part of this whole challenge, he for some reason uses a Safeguard first, allowing me to get off a Dragon Claw that brings him down to a 3rd after he eats his berry, meaning the next one will finish him off. He then hits us with an Outrage and we just manage to survive with no more than 44 hit points and land our 2nd Dragon Claw and take out Lance's ace in the hole. From here, all he has left is 2 Dragonairs, who we easily can take down in 1 Dragon Claw each, and after what was quite literally hours of preparation, be done with Lance. And now move on to what is truly the final battle of the game, the final fight with your rival now that he is the champion. So for the final fight, the only Pokemon that he has on his team that worries me is of course his Blastoise, as by this fight he has Hydro Pump, which will 100% knock me out if it lands. So the final battle isn't so much a test of skill, as it really is a test of luck at this point. His first 2 Pokemon, Pidgeot and Rhydon, are easy enough to deal with, as I can one-shot Pidgeot with Flamethrower, and Rhydon mostly just goes for Rock Tomb, which misses a lot so long as I have even 1 double team built up. So what I ended up doing was building 6 double teams up on Pidgeot, which is incredibly risky at this point, as it knows Aerial Ace, which is an attack that will never miss, meaning he will do about half of my health and damage if he uses it 6 times while I set up the double teams. Once that's set up, he easily goes down with a single Flamethrower, and next on the chopping block is Rhydon. I find the best way to deal with Rhydon was to just use Flamethrower followed up by a Dragon Claw, otherwise he would land in the red and be healed using a full restore. Next was when Blastoise would come out. A single Fire Blast would take him to just under half here, but result in him eating a berry to bring him back to above half, meaning I couldn't just 2-shot him. This is where I died the most, as it was just up to Locke whether or not his Hydro Pumps would miss or not to even give me the chance to take him out. What ended up working in the end was a run where I hit him with a Dragon Claw that brought him to just above half health so he wouldn't eat his berry, followed by him missing his Hydro Pump. I then landed a Fire Blast that brought him right down to a few hit points, and he then missed a second Hydro Pump, but best of all, he ate his berry, forcing his health back into the yellow, meaning he wouldn't use a full restore on him, and from there I was able to hit him with a Flamethrower and finally be rid of this stupid rocket turtle. From here, I took out Alakazam with a Dragon Claw and Flamethrower thanks to him missing his Psychic. Executor was obviously never an issue and was easily destroyed by a Flamethrower, and lastly, his Arcanine had no moves that could even remotely do any real damage to me, and with a Fire Blast and a Flamethrower he went down, meaning we had beaten the champion and finished the game, proving that yes, you can indeed beat Pokemon Fire Red with only a Charmander. So even though this ended up being a lot longer than I thought it would be, especially the beginning 2 gyms and the massive amounts of grinding required at the end to get past the Elite Four, I actually had a lot of fun. It's been a while since I've played through some of the older Pokemon games, and if it wasn't obvious enough by my profile picture, I am quite a big Pokemon fan. I would like to do more of these kind of Pokemon single challenge runs in the future, but we'll see what happens next. Regardless, that's going to be the end of this challenge video. If you enjoyed what you saw, consider giving the video a like, and if you're interested in more challenges in the future, feel free to subscribe as I try to have one of these videos out every week. My name's Nerbit, stay safe everyone, and I'll see you all in the next video.